Sri Lanka Armored Corps was in the forefront in all the main operations launched to eradicate terrorism from Sri Lanka. Its contribution at different levels to fight many battles was astonishing. Army endured much difficulties to reach thus far, yet it never resolved to fall back, but was appreciated for its effectiveness, commitment, and veracity. Armed experience in Sri Lanka accounts for insurrections, counterinsurgency operations, limited operations, and semi-conventional operations. Sri Lanka, being a small country with varying ground conditions, made the armored task more challenging. Getting tank crews familiarized with such a diverse terrain was a huge task. Yet, in its unique way, armor faced the challenges, having considered the indispensability of the combat arm of decision. Facts to grasp to give a broader knowledge will be explained in the subsequent slides. The terrain in the northern theatre consists of lagoons, coconut and palmyra cultivations, paddy fields, vegetation, sandy terrain, secondary jungles, and built-up areas. The aspect to deliberate here is how these terrain conditions became a tactical tool to enemy and bottleneck to armor. In a limited space in varying ground conditions, armor had to overcome enemy tank hunting parties, ditch combats, as well as improvised explosive devices. Armor had to resort to use of innovative and unconventional methods, as well as take calculated risks to maintain momentum. The ground conditions of Eastern Theatre mainly consist of primary and secondary jungles, built-up areas, thick vegetation, and marshy lands. The armor had fewer opportunities to engage the enemy, yet armor provided the deterrence required. Furthermore, armor was used as fire bases and to take on impromptu targets. In the process, armor had to overcome improvised explosive devices and indirect fire from enemy long-range weapons. Let me now explain the threats posed by the LTT towards armor. LTT improvised landmines and used them systematically to cause unprecedented damage. Often the AFV, which got damaged due to such improvised landmines, sustained almost a complete kill, better known as K-kill in tankers terminology, where no option left other than destroying it completely. Close country, built-up areas, and the civilian population gave the LTT a great advantage to close with and engage the AFVs in their vulnerable areas in close proximity. LTT very frequently used RPG-7s in numbers and took opportunity targets with shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons as well. Weapons such as 105mm RCLs, 30mm and 25mm cannons, and 12.7mm machine guns posed a threat to light armored vehicles and their crew. In a number of occasions, LTT used artillery guns and mortars to counter armor. Moreover, the accuracy of the artillery and mortar firing was such that even though it did not damage the AFV, it compelled the tank commander to change the position of the AFV or brave the threat to fulfill the mission. Tasks allocated to armor in the Sri Lankan battlefield were much diverse than other counterinsurgency operations. As a base for further studies, these tasks could be categorized broadly as shown in the subsequent slides. LTT possessed few AFVs which were captured from the Sri Lanka Army and the Indian Peacekeeping Force. However, many other improvised vehicles which could sustain fire of infantry weapons posed a considerable threat in terms of using them as suicide vehicles and troop-carrying vehicles. Armor was very effective in taking on such targets, giving confidence to the infantry soldier. LTT effectively took advantage of the natural obstacles and the terrain. Their modus operandi in fighting the armor in the open terrain was based on long extending ditch kumbans, reinforced with improvised explosive devices, landmines, and tactical use of its card. The point to ponder here is that armor was very unorthodox, devoid of all conventional methods of employment to subdue enemy threat. Since the LTT used indirect weapons on broader front, and as the evacuation of casualty became difficult, APCs were used extensively for casualty evacuation under trying conditions when armored vehicles were not in offensive or other operational commitments. Armor operations were conducted to negotiate LTT targets, which were difficult for infantry to reach. These armor operations were conducted targeting heavily fortified bunker lines, which helped reduce infantry casualties. Armor was also used for deceptions to divert attention as well as split enemy strength. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very much prudent to state that use of armor in the Sri Lankan context was very unorthodox, mission-oriented, less with conventional application, and was characterized by adoption of new methods to achieve success. Lessons which could be brought forward are based on these innovative methods used. MBT troops were amalgamated with ICVs, APCs, and composite troop entities were formulated. This gave an added advantage of having infantry troops for close protection, and where required, the MBTs provided covering fire for the lighter AFVs to move with more maneuverability. In areas where fields of fire were less and MBTs couldn't achieve desired maneuverability, elevated firing positions were made, having a ramp to drive the MBT to the firing position over 10 to 15 meters above ground. These positions gave good observation and fields of fire, especially in static defenses. Apart from above innovative methods, a few other lessons that could be brought out will be explained now. In the Sri Lankan scenario, the LTT took advantage of the civilian population and their property. Therefore, before employing armed assets, the armor command on ground had to have accurate information of the terrain and the environment. Use of armor in close country with limited fields of fire, an area of maneuver became possible with deliberate preparation and training. Furthermore, here too, tank commanders played a vital role since they had to operate independently. AFE crews were multi-skilled. AFE commander as well as the crew members could drive and fire with the AFEs. The aspects of mission command were practiced widely. Civilian factor demanded action with responsibility from very junior level. Often the tank formation commander was dismounted and was present at the very location where the action was taking place to grasp the real situation on ground. Since tanks were vulnerable due to close ground conditions, innovative ideas were used to improve their protection. They include the use of wire mesh, rubber skirts, and sandbags. By wearing hazardous body armor, the tank commander was able to operate in the open or with open hatch to maneuver and command the tank, minimizing the threat of enemy indirect fire, snipers, and shoulder-fired weapons. Taking up nighttime offensive defense along threatened areas to strengthen defenses after day operations. This was a deviation from conventional armor doctrine, but produced very effective results. Ladies and gentlemen, armor support during the final battle for Putukudi-Rippu was coordinated at the highest level to avoid blue-on-blue situation as the formation homed in on their objective. The Sri Lanka Armed Corps, since its inception, has done Sri Lanka proud by serving her through thick and thin, befitting their motto, "Whither the fates call." Hope not, time fades away, the valor of men serving it, with those of their brethren from other arms and services. Thank you very much.